Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're going to wait 5 minutes and then we'll start today's Kwanzaa celebration. I always think about how awkward this must be. Welcome, welcome. Oh, blessings from Burbank. We're based in Burbank. Have you come by Maroon Arts and Culture before? This is our first time too. This is our first year celebrating Kwanzaa as an organization, and also we're supposed to be in person at at our studio today, but the flight cancellations has affected our whole crew, so we're kind of marooned ourselves out of town. But we'll be back in person on Thursday. You should definitely stop by. Welcome to the neighborhood. Welcome to the neighborhood. We've been in Burbank for 2 years now, just about, and it's a great place. But we're really trying to make it to where we can be like a source, a hub, I guess, for culture in the area. So, yeah, because this is our first year doing Kwanzaa. At first, I was a little bit, freaked out, but at the end of the day, Kwanzaa is a celebration that is about community, intentions. So it can't. I mean, how can you go wrong, really? I'm gonna give it just a few more minutes because I know I've got some people that want to join, but it's the holidays, and also people have gone back to work. Oh, Burbank Families of Color. Is that I think one of my coworkers, Celia, may be in that group. Celia Carey. She's my partner in crime. Uh-uh. So yeah, I like for Celia to be the face of things. I try, I always get nervous on camera and things like that, but I'm trying to get better about it. Um, I'm talking to, just so everyone knows, I'm talking to two cameras. We're streaming on our website, and on YouTube and also on IG Live, because not all of our supporters have social media. So I'm gonna give it just a few more minutes wait for people to join, and then we'll get started with today's Kwanzaa celebration. I always think about how awkward it must be for people that watch these videos later and see like all the dead space at the beginning. And it's like, hopefully they can fast forward through. I think sorry, I'm looking at two things at once. Yesterday we had people join like maybe like 10, 15 minutes in. So I was trying to, and I had already started, but just working out the kinks on this whole thing. So I'll probably give it probably another like 5 minutes or so. Oh my gosh, don't tell me that. It's going to make me nervous. It's going to make me nervous. But I'm actually really excited about today's topic. So I hope that um, I hope it'll be informational for the whole family. Give me just 1 second. While I wait, I'll show you all my setup. I have my Kanara here. Yesterday we lit the first candle, which was the unity candle, the black candle in the center. And then also too the bamboo mat that it sits on. And also my unity cup here. There's supposed to be some other aspects. You're supposed to have some fruits because Kwanzaa is based on a first fruit celebration, and some corn about, focusing on the future. But I had to get it together, because I'm not in town. So, but instead of what I have here, though, is my great grandmother's spoon, a little artifact from an ancestor on my setup. Give me just 1 second. Let me. Okay. Okay. Tomorrow we may not be able to do it, but we'll see. Today we're going to talk about maroons. We're going to talk about maroons all over the world and the history of maroons because I think that that's critical for the theme for today. And just a reminder, we're on IG Live, but you can also watch us on our website too. So if you've got like a dead phone or something, you can always just go to maroonarts.com and tune in there as well. Just an FYI. All right. At 5:15, I'm going to go ahead and get started. And then I guess hopefully more people will come. If not, they can catch the recording later. Hey, Sil. So are you in the Burbank Families of Color group? We have a new friend. We have a new friend in here that lives in Burbank. Just joined in April. Moved to Burbank in April. Celia is my partner in crime, and she's got a son. So yeah, maybe we'll definitely need to check out that Burbank Families of Color group. Vanessa, nice to meet you, Vanessa. I'm LJ. Welcome, welcome to Kwanzaa. I'm gonna start at 5:15, and then we're not going to be here very long. Gotta get my notes together because my memory ain't what it used to be. All right, let's get started. So I'll start off by saying welcome to the second day of Kwanzaa. For people who don't know, who may be watching this later, my name is LJ Lindsay Jenkins, and I'm the founder of Maroon Arts and Culture. I'm talking to two cameras. I'm talking to the IG Live camera, and I'm also talking to my laptop across the way, so that people can watch on our website, maroonarts.com. Today we are going to we'll get into the theme first, but first I'd like to start off by talking about the creation of Kwanzaa and honoring the creator of Kwanzaa. So Kwanzaa was created in 1966 by Dr. Maulana Karenga, professor and chairman of Africana Studies at Cal State Long Beach. And I just want to point out too that in 1966, Africana Studies was a new topic. It's maroonarts.com with the S. And so very much forward thinking. He based the holiday of Kwanzaa on several combined aspects of different harvest celebrations, first fruits celebrations. The main language for all of the different days and principles, and even the greeting Habari, Gani, is Swahili. He created 7 guiding principles to be discussed during the week of Kwanzaa. And these principles represent 7 values of African culture that help build and reinforce community. Every day, a different principle is discussed, and each day, a candle is lit on the kinara, which is the candle holder. And what I really enjoy the most about Kwanzaa is that it is a purpose-driven holiday. So what that means is it's not about giving presents, and it's not a religious holiday. The purpose of Kwanzaa is to actively reflect and think about specific principles that are critical to the history, the culture, the development, and the future of Black people and Blackness. And so that's why I love Kwanzaa specifically, because it is a holiday that is about purpose. As the founder of Maroon Arts and Culture, I also love any Black holiday. That's number one. But I am particularly passionate about things that are specific to Black American culture, meaning things that are uniquely created by and for people who are descendant of slaves in America. So, as Black people, we are often subject to what Dr. Gina Page, the founder of African Ancestry, she calls it the Africa void. And it is the distance between Black Americans in the homeland of Africa through time, place, and space and trauma. And I just think that there have been so many creative ways that we have tried to fill that void and be coming up with these holidays and these celebrations that are rooted in Africa, but also focused on the future of Black America. To me, that is really special. And as a person that is the founder of a Black arts organization, an organization that celebrates the global majority, I think it's really important that we honor and codify and celebrate these traditions. And so that's why Kwanzaa is important to me. I like to start any gathering by calling on an ancestor. I'm a person that I don't like to be in front of people or cameras, really. That's Celia's job. But but whenever I get nervous, it always really grounds me to do so. So for today, I call on Binko Spiojo, who is a Maroon from Colombia and the founder of the Palenque people there. We're going to be talking about self-determination in Maroons today. So I think that's an appropriate ancestor. Personally, I would like to call on my grandfather, Jay Joyce, because the theme of today is self-determination, self-naming, and carving out a space for yourself where maybe there is not another space. So for people who who depend upon being unique and forging a unique path for themselves. And when I think about my grandfather, that's what I think about. And so I encourage you all to name an ancestor in the chat as well. Anyone who really, inspires you to be self-determined, to carve your own journey, and to not be afraid to be unique. So please feel free to type the name of an ancestor in the chat so that we can bring them into this ritual with us today. While you all are doing that, I'll share some information about Maroon Arts and Culture. We were founded on Juneteenth, 2019. So that's how much I love unique Black American holidays. We were founded on Juneteenth. And so we are an organization that is committed to creating safe spaces for collaboration and creation and codification of Black art and culture. We do a lot of educational programs. We do a lot of cultural celebrations, and we support and also develop new work. I'm a theater person, so we hopefully will have some really good theater performances coming soon. In 2023, we do have a lot of exciting activities coming up. So if you don't follow us on Instagram, Facebook, it's Maroon Arts and Culture. Our website is maroonarts.com. And this in the spring, we will be reviving our monologue competition for teens. So if you know any young people between the ages of 13 and 18, please send them our way. We got to sponsor y'all, so we're gonna be able to throw them some cash, some training, some really great educational content, but mostly we're going to encourage them to use their own voices and tell their own stories. So that's Maroon Monologue Competition is coming in the spring. It's for teens ages 13 to 18. So if you know any young people in the Los Angeles area, send them our way. And then we'll also be doing our third annual Juneteenth celebration in the summer. That is turning into our signature program, mostly because we have the support of a really great community. And that's what it's all about. Hold on one second. Dad, can you turn that off, please? Dad. Y'all, I really hate to do this, but I really need. Thank you. Okay, sorry about that, because it's like a lot going on because I'm not like in my office, I'm out and about. So I too am in my room today. So today's theme is Kuji Chak Kuji Ja. I practiced how to say this 37 times, but I'm frazzled. So let me just reset. Kuji Chakalia. Kuji Chakalia. And this is the symbol for it. And I'll show this camera as well. And this theme it says it's about self-determination, to define ourselves, name ourselves, create for ourselves, and to speak for ourselves, which is very important. You know, as Black people in America, there have been several times throughout history where we have had people speak on our behalf, say what it is that we want, presume to know what is best for us, label us with various things that we do not agree with, force their beliefs onto us, and also take our beliefs away from us. And so again, with Kwanzaa being a purpose-driven holiday, it is really important for us to think about, what does self-determination mean to us as Black people in America, but also as a diaspora. So I think that for me, it's important to talk about Maroons, the history of Maroons. So for today's theme to be self-determination, I can't think of a better time to discuss our namesake as an organization, which is we are Maroon Arts and Culture, and we are named after Maroon communities. So that's what we're going to talk about today for Kwanzaa. All right, so the definition of a Maroon is a person who is abandoned without resources, like a lot of people in the airport right now. And so this is a word that has been used to describe, people who are in shipwrecks and things like that. But it is also a word that is used to describe people who are in bondage and who escaped and ran away into the wilderness. When we think about bondage, especially when we think about bondage in America, we think about this idea of people escaping from southern states where there was slavery into northern states where there was freedom. But consider the fact that for many, many years, centuries really, in America, there was slavery everywhere. In the North, in the South, Sojourner Truth was enslaved in New York. Harriet Tubman was enslaved in Maryland. So when these people were enslaved in places where there was nowhere to go, please believe that did not prevent them from running. Freedom is an inherent right, which means it is something that people will chase, whether there is anywhere for them to go or not. And so a lot of times the people who did that, who ran away, they escaped into swamps, into the wilderness, into the mountains, and they created for themselves self-determined, self-defined, self-sufficient communities. And those are Maroons. These are our Maroon communities. Sometimes it was one or two people in the wilderness surviving, alone, but many times it was larger communities and societies. And even still, there were people who, created entire cities that are still standing to this day. And so I'm a person that's very rooted in history and ancestry, and we'll talk about a few today. So in the quote unquote New World in America, there were, and starting as early as 1512, you have stories of African slaves escaping. And so these would be like some early Maroons, right? So as early as 1512, you have people escaping slavery. Many of these people, especially during this time period, they joined up with indigenous people. And so to that extent, we understand how critical strategic partnerships are in the survival of Maroon communities. So in addition to, so that's like 1512. Then you fast forward to, like, for example, the Seminole Indian tribes of Florida. There was a moment where Florida was a part of Spain. And so when you were enslaved in the South, you would run into Florida. And many of these people became Maroons. As a result, you have Maroon communities in Florida, but many people also joined up with the Seminole Indians in Florida as well. And so one of the strategic things that Maroon communities did was they joined up with other disadvantaged communities, other people who are also needing to try to make a way for themselves. Or if we go back to the definition of Maroon, other people who were abandoned without resources. And so the strategic partnership is like a model that we can follow as, current modern day Maroons. And it's something that we should think about when we think about being self-determined people, is how can we link up with others. So the Black Seminole Indians, they were such a large group. They fought 4 wars, against Andrew Jackson. And so that's an example of Maroon communities. You also have the Maroons of Louisiana. So Louisiana was a unique place to be enslaved. Sometimes you had a day off, Sundays, but you were expected to come back. And so you might have there not only people who just wandered off and never came back, but you have people who acted as a conduit in between. So maybe people were enslaved Monday through Saturday. On Sundays, they would go into the swamps where they knew other escaped slave people were, and they would help them. They would bring them food, resources. They would bring them information and news. And so I feel here is another example of something we can model ourselves after, is this idea of sometimes, even though at Maroon, we consider ourselves to be Maroons, so we're kind of in the wilderness by ourselves, but we do depend on people who are going back and forth into a more established society, and being a link for us, into those communities. One of our good friends at Maroon, Carmenita Heligar, she just recently ran for Burbank City Council. I tell her all the time, I'm not a person that wants to get involved in politics, but her existence as a Black Indigenous woman in that space is really critical for our survival as Maroons. So I think that that's also another important thing for us to model. These Maroon communities, they were not always, they were not just barely surviving. Many of them, they created strongholds. So we're talking about the Louisiana Maroons, and they were very self-determined in the sense that there's the famous story of one Maroon community that had a sign up in the swamp, and they said, "God help the white man who dared to cross this sign." And so even though they were not supposed to be there, and even though they were surviving in the swamp, they made it very clear that they were a community, they were a stronghold. Thank you, Vanessa. And they defined themselves as such, and they dared anyone else to go against that definition. So again, thinking about today's theme of self-determination and defining ourselves and speaking for ourselves and advocating for ourselves. Some of my other favorite Maroon communities, and for people who are just joining, we're talking about Maroon communities because we are Maroon Arts and Culture. I consider us a Maroon community, and today's theme is self-determination, defining ourselves, naming ourselves, creating for ourselves, and speaking for ourselves as a Black community. And I just can't think of a better time to talk about the history of Maroons. So we talked about the early example of Maroons in 1512. We talked about the Maroons of Louisiana, who created strongholds. We talked about the Black Seminoles who created strategic partnerships and joined in with other marginalized communities in order to strengthen their survival. You also have the Palenque people. So any place in the world, anywhere in the world where there's bondage, there are Maroons. So you have examples of Maroon communities in South America. At the beginning of today's video, I called on Bencos Biojo, who is the founder of the Palenque people in Colombia. There's a famous statue actually that people may have seen but may not know where it comes from, and it's a Black man in chains with his fist forward like this, as if he's coming out of a rock. And that's Biojo's. He was an escaped slave. He was enslaved in Colombia. He escaped. He founded the Maroon community there, and that is a community that is still alive to this day, still in Colombia, still a city, still an area, still thriving, still black in Colombia, and still in existence to this day. And that is because they are they were a Maroon community that survived. I'm streaming on IG Live and also on our website, which is maroonarts.com, and also on our YouTube, which is also Maroon Arts and Culture. So I'll save this video and then I'll put it somewhere else as well. So that's another example of one of my favorite Maroon communities. Again, thinking about Maroons all over the world, you have Jamaica. Jamaica had many, many Maroon communities. One of the most famous would be Nanny Town, which was founded by a Black woman. And if you want to get something done, you get a Black woman to do it. And so Nanny was a famous Maroon. She brought her people up. You can see, drawings of the community, very much established. Trelawney Town as well in Jamaica. You have also the Maroons in Suriname. You have the Maroons in Cuba. Anywhere in the world where there was bondage, you have Maroons, because again, freedom is an inherent right. And whether or not there is a place you can go to find freedom, people will run from bondage and they will make a way for themselves where there is no way. They will be self-determined, which is our theme for today. Self-determination. Okay. So you also have, for example, Maroons in the sense of cultural preservation. So you have the Gullah Geechee people in the Southeast United States who have maintained various cultural strongholds throughout the years. And that's important because that's part of what being a Maroon is. It's the holding on to culture, the holding on to the history, the codification of the rituals, that self-naming, that self-definition, and just saying to yourself, just saying to yourself, I believe that the things that I have brought with me from Africa are just as important as the things that I have learned here in America. And like preserving these things, you could consider the Gullah people a Maroon community as well. And then I also would like to, let me look at my notes. I would also like to point out another example of a modern Maroon community would be the communal organizations and the communes of the 60s and 70s. So during that time period, there were a lot of people who were reaching out for Pan-Africanism and, looking for another way outside of the dominant white culture. And many of these people created communes, really, communes where they could try to, again, self-name, self-determine, and create an environment, a community for themselves that is just outside of the mainstream culture, but very much rooted in Blackness and our African history. One such example would be the MOVE organization in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I definitely consider them a Maroon community. They tried their best to create an enclosed world for themselves. And as many of us know, the result is that they were bombed by the police. So there was a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of resistance to that community. And as a result, they were persecuted by the police, and which resulted in 11 members dying, including 5 children. And so this is another area where I have to, comment, where it's like once you get that Maroon community, once you are able to get that self-defined community, it's what do it's hard, it's the difficulty is in maintaining it, because as we know with Tulsa, right, you could say that that is another example of a maroon community, where if you are a black person, you're going to have a black doctor, a black lawyer, a black preacher, a black teacher. And so they tried their best to to maintain that stronghold. And we all know what happened as a result of that is they were also bombed and destroyed, and suffered a lot of violence. And so I do think that that's the other side of it, right? When you want to create a maroon community, um, when you want to create a stronghold, how do you hold on to it, and how do you protect it from the people that are working against that? I open that question up to the group if anyone has any thoughts on that. I definitely think creating strategic partnerships is important. And I definitely think that, having those connections to mainstream society is also important. Standing strong in your beliefs, I think, is important. But I mean, that is always something that you have to think about. Just even for personally, like just to tell a little Maroon arts and culture story time. For at our very first Juneteenth, there was a place across the street, a business, a business across the street that was a stronghold for Trump supporters. So every Saturday, there were a lot of people out there with Trump flags and all kinds of, like, like hateful slogans and things like that. And it felt a little bit of aggressive because they were reacting to um, being called out for not following quarantine rules. And so they were mad. And so it felt really aggressive. And so for us across the street as Maroons, it was a concern that they were going to start encroaching into our safe space. And that's a scary thing, because history, right? Because if you study history, if you know history, you know that that is something that you have to be aware of. And so I'm always on the alert to on how I can protect our maroon community. So from the comments, we say, hold on to and protect your stronghold. I know that's right. That whole idea of like linking arms and elbows with people so that, so others cannot pass. I think about that a lot. And for that, and I'm very grateful to our community for helping us do that. Celia says it's important to move without considering the white gaze. And that's my thing right there. Shout out to another ancestor, Toni Morrison, who that was her stronghold, was to and Zora Neale Hurston as well, right? Like holding on to your culture to the point where you do not even consider what it's like for others to view it. Um, Zora Neale Hurston collected stories from the Gullah community, as did Dr. Carter G. Woodson, or did Carter G. Woodson happen to send anthropology students to preserve and correct? Yes, yes, yes. She also, Zora Neale Hurston was a cultural anthropologist above anything else, above being a theater person or anything else. And so because of her, we have a lot of evidence. You could even say that Zora Neale Hurston is the product of a Maroon community, because she grew up in an all Black city in Florida where, it was a Black mayor, Black police, Black teachers. And so she was but they had a strategic partnership with the white town nearby. And so actually, just for Zora Neale Hurston tea, she once wrote an article in a conservative magazine where she said that she was against integration. And I think that because she herself had experienced such a vibrant Black community in her upbringing, that for her it was like, why do we even need to worry about it? We can do this for ourselves. Of course, it was like short-sighted, because she didn't realize that in other places, or maybe she did, and she felt it could be worked. It was something that could be worked through. But in other places, there weren't the resources that they had in their town. New Orleans is my favorite city, maybe on earth. So the Maroon history in New Orleans is so rich. And for today's theme of self-determination, it's a great place to call. Self-determination, naming ourselves, creating for ourselves, speaking for ourselves. There's a lot of history of that in New Orleans. And while I'm here, I just would like to shout out two of my favorite organizations in New Orleans that inspired me to take on Kwanzaa as Maroon, and that would be Studio B and No Nola Tours, KNOW, No Nola Tours. In 2019, we did Kwanzaa there, and the studio was beautiful. The artwork was inspiring. The program was led by Malik from No Nola Tours, and I believe he's like a history expert from Xavier. Very smart brother. So I really encourage anyone, if you're in New Orleans, especially around Christmas time, go see them for your Kwanzaa needs. And then I'll also say too that my setup today, and I'll show you all my setup, that my setup today came from the Pan African Connection in Dallas, Texas. So I have here my Kanara. It's a hand carved Kanara from Ghana. And then this here is the Sankofa bird representing a return to your roots, a return to what's important. And then also I have here the bamboo mat, since I showed everybody around earlier, and my Unity cup, which pre-COVID, we maybe would have all took a sip out of that, but we're not doing it like that no more. Habari Gani. That's my favorite little greeting. And I don't know why I put that little sauce on it. But whenever I talk to my sister, it's like Habari Gani. It's extra. Don't do that. You can, or you can. It's up to you. Make it your own. The theme today is Kwanzaa. The response for Kwanzaa is today's theme. So when I say Habari Gani, you say Kuji Chakalia. You can try to pronounce that. Oh yeah. So I'm going to light my Kwanzaa candle for today. I was supposed to do that at the beginning, but I always get a little nervous. I'm going to be vulnerable with you all and tell you I get a little nervous. But as I as I light the candle today, I encourage you all to think about self-determination. Think about these Maroon communities and how they did determine things for themselves, and for how they did self-naming and creating and things like that. And then I'll open it up and we can talk about how we can bring that into our modern lives. So as I light this candle though, oops, are you still there? Uh-oh. As I light this candle, I'm going to call on more ancestors. I'll call on the unnamed Maroons that we model our organization, Maroon Arts and Culture. We model our organization off these Maroons. So I will call on the unnamed ancestors of Nannytown, the unnamed ancestors of Suriname, the unnamed ancestors of Tainos, the Maroon slaved in Cuba that joined the Tainos tribes. Oh, the unnamed ancestors from the Great Dismal Swamp Maroons. And of course, the unnamed ancestors that wandered the wilderness alone, not part of a community, but were so self-determined that they decided that they would rather be alone in freedom than enslaved with the group. And so, as a Maroon, that's these are the things that inspire me, and I hope that they inspire you as well. If you have any thoughts on how we can continue to maintain, oh, and really quickly too, let me pour for the ancestors that I just mentioned. We got to give them a little water, so we'll pour some out here. All right. So I'll go through some comments. Oh, to the Maroons who never reached their destinations and died in the wilderness. That's deep. That's very deep. Don't wait for folks to invite you to the table. Create your own table. That's like my love language right there. That's how I do it. And I think that that's the best way to do it. Celia's going to call on her great grandmother, Willie Bell, one of the first Black women to own land in Mississippi. Fabulous. When you have land ownership, you can create a Maroon out of your own family. Bring everybody family in, and now it's just you all, depending on one another. The other thing that I really love about Maroon communities that I try to model our organization after is the creation of art, even in moments of difficulty. Because even though these people were trying to forge a way for themselves in the wilderness, they still managed to innovate and create and be inspiring and inspired, and inspired by others. They made up foods They did crafts. A lot of them, especially in Louisiana, created different arts and quilts and things like that that they gave to their partners to sell in the markets, or maybe they would even come into the markets and sell it themselves and then return to their Maroon community. Like they had the option to join in with the main, but they chose to remain separated and in the wilderness. So I believe that everybody has their own role to play in the revolution. You know, we need people that are teaching others about what is the history and how they can do better and holding people accountable. We need people that are interested in being in politics and changing the laws and changing the legislature. We need Black teachers in the schools to make sure that the kids are learning the right things, and especially in schools. Like I was a teacher here in Texas. Schools were very segregated. I mean, I taught here in Texas for like 2 years before I had my first white student. And so in that sense, you really need Black teachers in those spaces. But for me, as the founder of Maroon Arts and Culture, I take very seriously our role, which I believe is to create a safe space where all of those people and partners that I just mentioned can come and be poured into and be validated and accepted and celebrated before they go out into the world and continue to do work on our behalf. So I think that that's going to wrap it up for today. I really do thank you all so much for joining us for our Kwanzaa celebration. Oh, before I go, I did want to show y'all this picture right here. So we commissioned this piece of art. I hope that the people at home probably think I look crazy, but I want you to be able to see it. But we commissioned this piece of art from a really wonderful artist. She's Essence of Maya on Instagram. So if you're on Instagram, go follow her right now. And I'll put this here. I don't know if you can see. I hope you can see. But I told her that I wanted to capture the essence of maroons. And that's basically all I said. And that's what she did. And so if you've ever seen our logo, you can see it in the top left corner. It's a pic. Because we are an arts organization. So, you know, in the Adinkra symbols, the pick is typically representative of aesthetic beauty. But also, I wanted something that would be a symbol in the wilderness. If you were trying to escape an oppressive situation and you were wandering through the wilderness, I would hope that you would be able to see the symbol and know that you're going in the right direction and know that there's a Maroon community not very far that you can lean on. So that's the story behind our logo, the pick. And then with this picture as well that Maya made for us, I wanted to convey the idea of being in the wilderness. But as you can see, there's light in the wilderness, and you've got the maroon star leading the way. And if you look very carefully, actually, you can see the outline of face. There's a woman here and a man here because it's the people that make a Maroon community. So yeah, we're gonna have posters and things like that of this piece and a couple of other things available at HQ. If all goes well at the airport, y'all, we'll be in person at our headquarters in Burbank on Thursday. And we are going to be doing Thursday's theme is cooperative economics. So we'll have some Black-owned businesses in the building. You can purchase some jewelry, some incense, some hats, some clothing at HQ on Thursday. We'll light the candles together. We'll Habari Gani. Okay, we'll Habari Gani. We'll celebrate. We'll have food and drinks and things like that. And we'll have like posters and things like this available as well. And I hope to, if you're local to Los Angeles, I hope to see you there. If you're not, I will try to stream it so that we can still be in community. So yeah, pray for these airlines, y'all, that I can make it on Thursday because our show was supposed to be home on Christmas so I could be ready for Kwanzaa. But that's all right. I'm actually really excited that it ended up this way. I'm happy to celebrate Kwanzaa here with my family in Dallas and spend more time with them. So thank you all so much for joining us today. I really do appreciate it. Please take some time to reflect on today's theme of self-determination, and just, show gratitude for where we already have it and think about how we can increase it in the future. All right. Thank you so much. I'll see you in Burbank soon. All right. Have a good evening.